Puritan Powerhouse, How Religion Built Boston Brick by Brick. Boston's emergence as a major colonial city was not a historical accident, but the direct result of the Puritan vision that shaped the city's physical layout, governance structures, and the rhythms of daily life. The Puritans' theology was not confined to Sunday sermons. It was the blueprint for the city's streets, the foundation of its laws, and the pulse of its social order. Below is a comprehensive analysis of how Puritan religious beliefs were translated, quite literally, into the bricks and mortar of early Boston. 1. Puritan theology. The blueprint for community core principles. Puritan theology was rooted in several key ideas. Covenant theology, the belief that the community was bound by a collective contract with God, requiring strict adherence to biblical law and mutual accountability. Predestination and moral earnestness, a sense of being chosen by God, which fostered both humility and a drive to create a model society, a city upon a hill. Biblical authority and plainness. The Bible was the ultimate guide, and simplicity in worship, architecture, and daily life was seen as a virtue. Communal responsibility. The well-being of the group was paramount. Individual failings could bring divine punishment on all. These principles were not abstract, they were enacted in every aspect of Boston's development. 2. City planning. Theology in the urban fabric, organic layout and community spaces. Unplanned, organic growth. Unlike later grid-based cities, Boston's early streets wound around the peninsula's natural features. This was partly practical, but also reflected the Puritan focus on immediate community needs over grandiose, individualistic planning. Centrality of the Meetinghouse. The Meetinghouse, serving both as church and town hall, was always at the heart of the settlement. This physical centrality mirrored the theological centrality of faith and communal decision-making. Boston Common. Established in 1634 as the first public park in America, the Common was a shared resource for grazing, militia training, and gatherings, an embodiment of the Puritan value of communal stewardship. Architectural simplicity. Meetinghouses. These were plain, rectangular wooden structures, devoid of ornamentation, with the pulpit as the focal point. This simplicity was a deliberate rejection of Anglican and Catholic opulence, emphasizing humility and the primacy of the word homes. Puritan houses were functional and symbolically mapped onto the body of Christ, reinforcing the idea that the home was a sacred, ordered space. The hearth was the spiritual and physical center, and the boarding room near the kitchen underscored the importance of family and nurture. Lack of ornamentation. Both public and private buildings avoided decorative excess, reflecting the Puritan suspicion of vanity and focus on inner spiritual life. Comparison to other cities. Boston's organic, community-centered development contrasted sharply with the planned, religiously pluralistic Philadelphia Quaker and the commercially oriented, diverse New York Dutch English. Boston's layout was a direct outgrowth of its religious and communal priorities. 3. Governance. Theocracy in action. The General Court and town meetings. The General Court, Boston's central governing body, composed of elected freemen church members, functioned as both legislature and judiciary. Only male church members could vote or hold office, ensuring that civic power was tightly bound to religious conformity. Town meetings. These gatherings allowed eligible men to participate in local governance, electing officials and making communal decisions. This participatory model reflected the Puritan ideal of covenant and mutual obligation. Law and social order. Legal codes. The Massachusetts Body of Liberties, 1641, codified laws that blended biblical principles with English common law. Laws regulated not just crime, but also moral behavior, church attendance, and even dress. Church and state. While not a modern theocracy, Boston's government was deeply influenced by religious principles. Ministers advised magistrates, and the civil government enforced religiously inspired laws. Exclusion and dissent. Intolerance of dissent. Dissenters like Anne Hutchinson and Roger Williams were banished, as unity was seen as essential to the community's covenant with God. Social surveillance. The community was responsible for monitoring and correcting the behavior of its members, with the belief that one person's sin could endanger all. 4. Daily life. Religion as the rhythm of existence. Work, family, and social institutions. Work ethic, hard work, discipline, and self-restraint were seen as both spiritual and practical necessities. Idleness was punished, and everyone was expected to contribute to the community family structure. The family was the basic unit of society, expected to model religious values. Men were heads of households, Women managed the home and children, reinforcing gendered roles, but also the centrality of the family in moral education. Literacy was a religious imperative, as reading the Bible was essential for salvation. Boston established the first public school in America, Boston Latin School, 1635, and later Harvard College, 1636, reflecting the Puritan commitment to education, social and civic life. Meetinghouses as social hubs. These buildings were not just for worship, but for town meetings, elections, and public debates. They fostered a sense of belonging and collective identity, and were the sites of both everyday life and extraordinary events. For example, the Boston Tea Party, charity and mutual aid. The wealthy were expected to support the poor, not for personal gain but for the common good and the glory of God. 5. Enduring legacy. Even as Boston grew and diversified, the imprint of Puritan theology remained visible. Civic engagement. The tradition of town meetings and local self-governance persisted, influencing American democracy education. Boston's status as a center of learning and reform can be traced to Puritan priorities: urban form, the city's winding streets, central public spaces, and tradition of communal responsibility are enduring legacies of its Puritan origins. Conclusion: Puritan theology was not just a set of beliefs, it was the architect of Boston's streets, the author of its laws, and the heartbeat of its daily life. From the placement of the meeting house to the structure of the family, from the city's legal codes to its educational institutions, Puritan values shaped Boston brick by brick. The result was a city that, for better and for worse, embodied the dream and the discipline of a people determined to build a godly community for the world to see.